Israeli troops seem to be circling Gaza City. What's the strategy that they are using here, and how do you expect Hamas to respond?
Well, Marcia, I mean, the Israeli Defense Force are now have got all the intelligence that they need. They're circling the objective, Gaza City, in order just to try to keep Hamas in. And at the same time, once they've got them in and not allowing anybody to get in to reinforce them, they will go into those buildings that we were seeing on the clip before and clear them out of the Hamas fighters. And at the same time, they will be looking as a priority where those hostages are. And they're also trying to keep the hostages from being moved around and taken out so they can try to rescue them along with what they're doing on the ground.
And the families of those hostages are becoming increasingly concerned as the war intensifies. We've got two things happening at once. We've got Netanyahu saying, nope, there's not going to be a ceasefire. That's not happening. At the same time that we have the humanitarian crisis growing and the worries over the hostages increasing as well. So were you surprised that Netanyahu has dug in his heels and said, no, we're moving ahead with this next phase?
I'm not surprised by what he said because, I mean, he has to represent all the citizens of Israel. And his citizens were attacked. 1,400 were slaughtered by Hamas. He can't wait forever because the longer he waits, the better it is for Hamas. The world's not going to allow him to wait forever because he's got a humanitarian crisis inside of Gaza that's getting worse exponentially by the day. So he's got to press forward and accelerate the timeline here so that he can get the hostages, force Hamas and destroy Hamas, as he stated, before the humanitarian crisis becomes untenable for the people inside of Gaza and for the world, and that means for Israel.
The troops, as we know, are already inside Gaza. So what does a full-scale ground assault look like?
Well, Marcia, we're seeing it right now. I mean, they are hitting, over 400, 500 times a day. They're hitting targets. They've got all their troops in there. They've got bulldozers building roads so they don't hit IEDs. They're sending their troops down into those tunnels. And this is the full assault. It is slow. It is absolutely excruciatingly difficult for the ground troops because, as you see in the picture here, every one of those buildings is a prepared defensive position. It's Hamas's own neighborhood. And it's harder for the Israelis to get in there and winkle them out and then to find the hostages. At the same time, you've got civilians that are probably still trapped in there. You've got civilians in the south. You've got no aid coming in. This is as complex as any operation you can get. And Israel is under the gun to get it done sooner than later.
Meantime, there's a lot of pressure on Canada, the United States, to get nationals out, to get people out of Gaza, Canadians who are there or in the West Bank. And on the weekend, we heard that talks were going on with Hamas to try to get citizens out. But we don't know what Hamas is asking for. Does your mind ever go there, Major General? I mean, in terms of negotiating with Hamas, where do you think things stand right now? How's that conversation going down? What are they asking for?
You always keep the door of negotiations open. You've got to talk to the bad guy at some stage in the game. Now, the Israelis and the West and probably Canada, we're doing intermediaries. Qatar is a key player in this to talk to Hamas. They've already helped negotiate the release of a few. So the more that you can have people talking to Hamas and hearing them, as you put the pressure on the other side of the metaphor here, you're going to keep those opportunities open that you can get some of your hostages out. You can also find out what Hamas wants and just also determine, based on their asks, just how effective your ground operations are going on too. So it's a bit of an opportunity to test to see how well you're doing with them. But the most important thing is you got to be talking to them to get the hostages out.
Right. And just quickly before you go, in case our viewers were wondering, we were looking at some video that was just released yesterday of 3 women being held hostage, one of them condemning Netanyahu's actions. Why do you think this video was released? What is the message behind it?
Well, first of all, the message that they're saying was coerced out of them to criticize their own prime minister. What else are they going to say? They're captives. The other thing, though, is to put pressure on Netanyahu to pull back because they're using the hostages as a shield, as a propaganda tool. But we have to appreciate is that's just going to instill the Israelis to push even harder to find those three ladies and also the rest of the hostages. Israel wants their people back.
Major General David Fraser, thank you so much. Good to see you this morning.